Greetings, everyone. This is Arletta, coming live and direct from Arletta Unleashed, and I'm so excited to be here for the second day in a row. This day has proven to be quite interesting. In between me working and teaching my classes, I've after posting my part one of this series on Facebook yesterday. What is it? Sexism and Male Privilege, a former Black Feminist Perspective. I've had some interesting responses, to say the least. And I was really glad of that because it gave me some framework with which to continue this discussion, because there's so many different directions I can go in. Also, I'm going to try something new, and that is making my posts shorter and shorter, because I would like to reach a larger audience, and I don't think most people have the patience to listen to me talk for 15 minutes. So y'all need to tell me, do you prefer 12-minute posts, 5-minute posts, 8-minute posts, okay? So I'm going to try today to keep it to 8 minutes. So pretty much what I want to discuss today is, first of all, the question is, male privilege real? The first thing that seems to occur when talking to majority of males, or black males in specific, because that's my target audience, um, many of them deny that there's any such thing. They're like, what are you talking about? That's not true. And then when I cite different examples, like I did yesterday about division, labor, and household, they'll be like, that's natural, or that's God's law, or that's, part of our African heritage, or some other interesting thing. But that doesn't negate the fact that it's male privilege, because it benefits men to the detriment of women. And it also implies, by definition of patriarchy, that the masculine and men are the norm and women are the exception, the less desired, the lower class, the other. And so it doesn't negate that. And so my premise is that male privilege is very real. And I think if you honestly ask any woman, if she's honest with you, she'll say, of course. What do you mean? And many of the different examples I would give, like I gave the example today of the expectation that a woman goes and take on a man's name upon marriage. If she chooses to, that's fine. But that's not a given. That's not a natural law. There's many cultures in the world where that's not necessarily the case. If truth be told, DNA is truly traced through the matrilineal line, not the patrilineal line. So to go and say I'm gonna pass on my name or pass on my genes, no, the genes are passed through the female. So or even the fact that sometimes, this is another example of male privilege. Even if a woman concedes to, okay, well, I'll keep my name, but our children can have your name. What if she wants the children to have her name, and she doesn't want to hyphenate, or some other options that are considered? What makes this right, or fair, or just? What makes a man's name more important than a female's name? And of course, I know all the arguments to that, but I'm just throwing it out there as another example of male privilege. Um, but the second thing that I want to explore is how, even in opening this uh, very relevant and real problem or issue of sexism and male privilege in the black community, does that make me anti-black, or aligning myself with white folks? And does that make me hate men and question black masculinity, want to be a man myself? No, I'm for justice. I'm for fair treatment. I'm for freedom. I'm for authenticity of expression. I'm for connection with the spirit. I'm for a harmony, a masculine and feminine energy that exists in our everyday reality. And if that negates being black, then what is your definition of being black? Um, that's another question. So, I know, I understand, for the majority of my life, I have been always very passionate about our community, the progress, lack thereof, in our community, and some of the very serious challenges that we face. I'm very much aware of our strengths, and also I have been subject to trying to deal with and overcome our weaknesses as an ethnic group. And to insinuate that this discussion is to the detriment of our ethnic group, I find ludicrous. So my question is how? How is it to ensure that woman, which I think most African people or African centered people would agree, the woman is the core of the family, she's the core of society. Everything starts with her and stems from her. And so, if it's a society or an environment where she is oppressed, is not fully expressed, is being subjugated, is not happy, is not able to have the opportunity to connect with herself and to explore her potentials and her interests and her energies within the context of having a family and being in a marriage and just the everyday process of life, then to me that's supporting an evolution of our community to the point where males and females find harmony, find peace, and find fulfillment. Sorry, that was my phone. So, please tell me, what am I doing that's anti-black? Um, yes, please articulate that for me. I've always heard the argument just thrown out there, you're identifying with white folks, but I'm like, we ain't even talking about white folks. We talking about what goes on in our homes and in our families and our experiences. Um, so that leads me to briefly what I want to talk about last, and I'm about to conclude this, and that is one of the biggest problems I have within the Black Muslim community, um, which is the case in most religious communities, which I also believe is the case within the Black quote unquote conscious community, is that the feminine really doesn't truly have a voice. You have all these individuals, namely brothers, who are given lip service to the idea of goddess and queen and so on and so forth. But where are our sister scholars? When we go to these different functions and stuff, where's the female voice being articulated and represented? And is there truly a forum where if she disagrees or if there's a specific issue related to women that Black men do not have to deal with or is not a challenge for them, that may be in counter to what is considered the status quo, well, that can be honestly and openly discussed without a woman being attacked. That's why so many sisters are silent. We just scared and we don't want to be labeled as not being supportive of Black men. And that's not true. And it's time to break that silence. I encourage you, I urge you, I implore you, please, even if you're in your own heads, to start honestly questioning the different aspects of your life and saying, okay, as a Black woman, this works in our community, this works in my relationship, this works in our families. As a Black woman, this doesn't work. And what are alternatives or options, or even to just articulate in your mind what is it you would like? What would be your ideal situation? What would be your dream home life? What would be your dream type relationship interaction with male and female? How would you like to be regarded as a woman? And what is that? And how does that look for you? Because these things aren't natural. I think that most of us would agree that pretty much the constructs of our reality are artificial. They're imposed upon us. They're a result of brainwashing, programming, and mind control. And so, what makes everything else, as far as our experience, being Black, being American, or being in America, however you choose to look at that, uh, aspects of this brainwashing program, mind control that we see, but patriarchy be natural. If one, I mean, it doesn't make sense, and that's the last thing I'm going to conclude with this. I love it when I'm presenting an argument, when a female's presenting an argument, she's accused of being emotional and not logical. But what's the logic in that? So black men can pick and choose what they want to address that is pro-black or pro-African, and then they could agree with what they want to agree with the status quo with white men and other men about patriarchy. There's no logic in that. There's no continuity in that. You could argue that from all kinds of perspectives, and I can counter it with logic. Come on now. Let's be honest here. So I would just like this to be a time of introspection for whoever chooses to watch this. For Black women, what is it that you want? What would be ideal for you? What are some examples of male privilege, whether it's the name or division of labor or the total denial of the fact that incest, rape, domestic abuse, these are serious issues in our community that we just sweep under the rug and don't address because we're like, we don't want to bring the white man in to get involved. And there's other aspects of that, but there are victimization of females by us, by our brothers and our sisters, that we act like doesn't exist, because to address it is to acknowledge that we have issues. And sometimes, in many cases, we're our own worst enemy. So what is it that you want? I want you to think about that. And for brothers, maybe you could concede, maybe that automatically assuming that emotion and feeling is negative and logic is positive, and one is feminine and one is masculine, may imply some level of privilege because all the rest of the world agrees with you. And that negates over half of the world population who just so happen to be female. Think about that. And with that, I close. Thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to coming to you tomorrow to continue this discussion. Peace.